All right. I guess I should turn on projector so that y'all can see what we're doing. Oh, guess I should take roll too, since like. I'm missing some people who always show up. Okay. The end where I have paper. So dynamics of growth. We are still talking about the same time period. This 1800s, 1810, 1850 time frame. But now we're going to discuss it from the viewpoint of more of social history, economics. Not really economics, more social. The things that actually, politics affects people, but jobs, where people live, that is even more telling and more immediately felt by people. You know, this whole change in politics was very revolutionary, but there were other things that people were even more in tune with. In 1800, we're still a fairly rural country. And even in 1850, we're going to be a majority rural country. But it's going to have taken a big leap towards urbanization and industrialization. And there's changes in a lot of areas. Agriculture is one. Particularly cotton. This is when cotton becomes king. And I don't know if you've ever heard that, but in the South, in the early 19th century, cotton was king, and its reign was total. It is the main reason that slavery persisted in the South. Had the South gone a different direction, slavery might have faded out on its own as it had in the North. Probably not, but it could have. But slavery was well suited to cotton, and cotton was well suited to the use of slaves. Cotton was expensive to process, however. Have any of you ever picked cotton? Actually looked at the little ball of cotton? There's seeds in there, and they're stickery. And initially, to get the fibers out, somebody had to sit there by hand and pull all of the little fibers off of the cotton. This was an issue. It took a lot of time. Cotton was still a profitable crop. But if you could just figure out a way to not have to do that by hand, it could be a really profitable crop. And that happens in the early 1800s. I don't have the date. I want to say it's 1817, but I'm not positive. A gentleman named Eli Whitney, he was a graduate of Yale, young man, visiting friends on a plantation in Georgia at the Mulberry Grove Plantation, was listening to them talk about this issue of separating. Actually, it's earlier than I said. separating the cotton. So he designs a machine called a cotton gin. Gin is short for engine. And it has little teeth that pull the fibers out and leave the seeds behind. This was actually invented in 1792. He started in 1793, finished it in 1793, 92 to 93. And this engine allowed cotton to be separated 50 times faster. That's a lot. If you can separate it 50 times faster, we can process it 50 times faster. Probably not completely process it because there are other steps. That means you can plant more because you can process it faster. And cotton really takes off. This is what makes cotton king. It becomes the major export commodity for the South, and actually for the entire country. Cotton makes up more than half of the exports from 1830s to the 1860s. That's a lot because we're exporting a lot. Not only is it exported, it's sent north, spurring new factories and businesses. So cotton, in a sense, kind of pays for the entire country in one way. It spreads to the South, bringing wealth there. It's sent north, bringing wealth to the factories. Factories spur construction. They spur mechanics who are needed to work on these new factories, and we will talk in depth about the factories later. The surplus money goes back into the economy to buy other things. The things that the factories are making in the north, cotton, steel, whatever, are coming back down to the South to be purchased. And cotton is kind of underlying all of this. That's where it starts. So cotton is important. It also, unfortunately, works really, really well with that peculiar institution of slavery. And pretty much guarantees that the South is not going to give up on that anytime soon. And the South could have gone different directions. We've talked about this before. The South could have built those factories. They didn't have to send their raw material north. They could have built, and there were some textile factories in the South. But with the advent of the cotton gin, cotton was just too easy. It made money too well. And no one was willing to branch out or take that risk to invest in other areas. It just, why? If you're making good money doing one thing, why do you shift to something that could be good money, but might not? It's going to cost you a lot to get started. No, I'll just keep my cotton. It's bringing me lots of money. Agriculture also is going to change in the West. A little quicker, we will move up. Some of this is cotton again, as planters and slaves move out to Alabama and Mississippi, because I mentioned before, cotton is very hard on the soil, so they're constantly seeking new ground to work. But up north in the Ohio River Valley and the Great Lakes, you're getting a lot of movement west. By 1860, more than half the population is going to live west of the Appalachians. And part of this is made possible by changes in land laws in 1820 that are going to lower the price of land. You could get a farm of 140 acres for as little as $100. And if you couldn't do that, now that they've killed the bank, or once the bank is killed, you can get an easy loan from a state bank and get your land. But that wasn't enough. The people out west wanted more, and they pushed for still further reductions. So Congress passes the Preemptive Act of 1830. This will play out a lot. It plays out really big when the Indian Territory opens up, in 1906 when Oklahoma becomes a state. But this is what you see in all the old westerns. The one lone family goes out and they find a piece of land and they squat on it and they start settling before it's ever been surveyed. And then once the surveyors come out, by right of being there, they can buy it at the lowest available price. Even if that land would have been a higher price, they're going to get it at a lower price, at the lowest price. You could claim up to 160 acres at $1.25 an acre. And then they passed the Graduation Act of 1854. That allowed for those really bad pieces of land that no one wants to have their price reduced. They would reduce it in steps over like 40 years, 30 years. They would reduce it in stages until it was low enough that somebody would buy it. We're talking about that really rocky land that no one's going to want to farm, and it doesn't grow any grass, so you can't put cattle on it. The bigger changes were the vast improvements of farming tools. Because you get to this new land, you still have to clear it. You got to cut down the trees, grub out the stumps, move the rocks. But once that's done, some of these new farming implements come in. Iron plows are invented. They don't break as easy. And then in 1819, a man named Jethro Wood of New York created a plow with replaceable parts. If you can replace the parts, you don't have to buy a whole new plow. You can just go from where you're at. Then John Deere created a steel plow in 1937. James Oliver had a chilled iron and steel plow in 1855. Each one of these is stronger than the one before. And then 1840, mechanical seeders are introduced. So no longer are you just walking along the row dropping seeds. Now you have a mechanical seeder that you can spread it with. The biggest invention was by Cyrus Hall McCormick of Virginia. In 1831, he comes up with a mechanical reaper to harvest wheat. Now, before this reaper, wheat is harvested, this is Halloweeny, with a sickle, the thing that Death carries around with him. And a strong man could work about a half an acre a day with a sickle. You could clear about a half an acre of wheat. The mechanical reaper took 2 men to work it, but you could clear 12 acres a day. That's a big improvement. That's a massive improvement. And by the 1850s, farming, while it's still subsistence in some areas, it is now a major commercial activity. We're exporting more. That central area of the country, that frontier along the Mississippi, becomes the breadbasket for the rest of the nation. And there's going to be changes that help that as well. But the country is going to start being fed from this center area of the nation. They're going to put goods on barges, send them down the Mississippi to New Orleans, put them on a boat, and send them around. And that brings us to the next major change and improvement. And this is transportation. The War of 1812 showed the government that we had some issues with transportation. It was hard to get soldiers where they needed to be, people where they needed to be. You know, in the East, you have a lot more navigable rivers, but once you get out west, there's a lot of flat, or at least there's not a lot of navigable rivers other than the Mississippi and the Ohio, then the Missouri is going off the other way. But like in Louisiana, you're going to walk. You're not going to, there's a lot of water, but there's not a lot of navigable rivers. And I'm talking about for big, a ship that you can get by in a boat, but you can't take cargo. Now, roads are the first. In 1795, the Wilderness Road, that road that Daniel Boone pushed through to Kentucky, is widened, becomes part of the national road system. Stagecoaches will finally make their appearance. They can go a whopping 4 miles an hour, still faster than you're going to walk. They were usually overcrowded. You could only go basically in good weather, because the roads were dirt. And when they became mud, you weren't passing that with a heavy wagon. And wagons were getting bigger. This is the time when the Conestoga wagon, the covered wagon you see when people go west, when that wagon is invented, and it's much bigger, even though it's not nearly as big as it looks in the movies. The bed of that wagon is probably maybe only half again as big as this desk. And you're a pioneer moving west, and you've got to get everything you own in there, plus all the food that you need to get you to where you need to be. But roads are getting better. In the Northeast, there's a move towards macadamized, I'm not saying that right, I know I'm not, roads. It's a forerunner to asphalt. It's basically like what we call a caliche road, just packed stone. They start that with the Philadelphia-Lancaster Turnpike in 1794. And turnpikes were toll roads. It's called a turnpike because it had like one of those, it swung. And that was the turnstile. But it's called a turnpike. By 1821, there's about 4,000 miles of turnpikes completed in the Northeast. But there's even better transportation coming. We're going to stop in a minute. Actually, we're going to stop right here. Like I said, I like Halloween. We'll pick this up. We have time. We're only like 4 days behind class. It's okay. It's a survey class. If we don't get to the end, you get to where we get. That's not a healthy attitude to take as an instructor, but it keeps me from losing my brain. So, y'all find a phone or a computer, and we're going to play a game. You don't get to leave. You have to stay. You have to play my game. All right, give me a second to get it up because I have a hard time with passwords. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people online. And people online can play too, but if you win, you're just going to have to get your prize later. No, I want to sign in. me this yesterday. Why can I not remember what I'm calling? I'm smarter than a computer. No, I thought it was a lot to upgrade. Oh, wait. That's not how we want to do this. How do I do that? Right. Turn it from here, like. All right, I'm assuming everybody's played Kahoot before. Okay, so Chloe made it, so that means the people online can see it. All right, there should be 20 people, so one more. Are you signing in? No, I know you can. I'm missing 3 people. Okay, we're just gonna start. Nobody here's having trouble, right? All right, let's start. So you got to remember, a nerd made this. So, and I think it's important to know where your holidays come from. Okay, congratulations to the one person who knew that, Sonia. Yep, paper. The by mid-century, we're talking 1950. Now, the Dennison Company put out books and elaborate, like for elaborate parties. Kind of cool. Yeah, this is what everybody should get. Oh, sorry, don't want to look at that. I haven't watched it yet. I just need to make a comeback. That should be the least popular color for all clothing. Not saying that's the right answer, I'm just saying I have a typo. I've never figured out how you could carve a turnip. They're not hollow. If you're good with words, you can figure this one out. You know, roots of words. Only after Christmas. Yeah, the original pagan celebration involves lots of bonfires and sacrifices, mostly of animals. She's represented by apples and nuts, which are why you have Bobby and apples, Bobby for apples during Halloween. All right, that's it. So Elizabeth third, she's online. Shane, you're second. And Jacob. So Elizabeth, you're gonna get whatever Shane and Jacob don't choose as the prizes. Jacob, you can get yours first and then Shane. Take your pick. You're Elizabeth. Okay, I'm mixing you up with Grace. I'm sorry. You're still retarded, so you still got one left. All right, we're gonna, let me take a picture of that and then we can end class. Thank you for playing my silly game with me. I hope you enjoyed it, at least a little bit. All of those answers were in those videos that I've put the links online. So if you want to learn more about Halloween, there's Cool stuff. All right, your hand is great.